How's that?
Oh, that's good. How's that? She has high self-esteem. She has high self-esteem. Today is the 25th anniversary of those words being spoken to me by my husband in his speech at our rehearsal dinner on our wedding weekend. It is still to this day the biggest compliment I have ever received. Thank you, babe. And on that day, 25 years ago, at age 25, it accurately described me. And it was cute and sweet and funny. It is only upon reflection, and with 25 years experience at being 25, that I now see that this compliment was more an amazement. Because the hard truth is that high self-esteem in women is not always common, and that is not funny. As I stand before you today as a 50-year-old woman staring into the proverbial mirror of midlife, a few solid truths are clear. And I feel mentioning them is important because they serve as the influential backdrop to my story and for all of our stories here today. Number one, we still live in a patriarchal society. Number two, we are living in a post-pandemic world. And number three, despite all of that, and most importantly, we are living in a historical moment where women are rising. What I have come to understand all these years later, and I'll bring the term self-esteem into the 21st century here, is that women empowerment is a privilege and a superpower. And as we know, with great power comes great responsibility. One that I am proud to hold, thank you, Mom, and proud to share. Before we really dive in, there are a couple things you should know about me. I worry about women. I worry that we are still infected with this insidious virus of our patriarchal society. I worry when I hear negative self-talk. I worry that we still live in a culture where she thinks highly of herself is used as an insult, and where self-insults are disguised as compliments, such as, I could never wear that outfit, but it looks great on you. And I get it, because I've said it. But the other thing you should know about me is that more than I worry about women, I believe in women. And here starts my story. 3 years ago, I created a business called Saltwater Mountain Company, where I lead groups of women into the ocean in Maine in the winter. It's called cold water dipping. It is a science and a magic. It is the ritual of deliberately walking slowly, safely, and in community into a natural body of cold water, such as oceans, lakes, or swimming holes. Anywhere from a few seconds to several minutes. And the water temp is roughly 40 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. It is practiced with intentions of physiological, psychological, and spiritual well-being. It attracts more women than it does men. Its effects have been researched, but more is needed. It is as ancient as it is new. And it is powerful medicine. As you can imagine, when people hear about what I do, the FAQs start streaming in. The most frequent being how and why. How did you get into this? And why would somebody do that? The best answer I can give you is with my personal dipping story, a birth story of sorts, and one that requires a little reflection. Looking back on my 20s and 30s, I worked as a birthing nurse. I had the distinct honor of witnessing firsthand women's innate power. I know how strong we are. I spent those years sitting with, breathing with, holding, massaging, and encouraging women as they told me in no uncertain terms or sounds that they could not go on. And then, of course, they did. Witnessing women show up and rise up with vulnerability, rawness, and nakedness was as inspiring as it was reverent. These women taught me so much. I was reminded, look what women can do when their power is seen. I felt I was on the right professional path and my purpose was really coming into focus. But life heats up, as it does, and mirrors get foggy. There are obstacles, and my 40s were filled with them. Aging parents, a global pandemic, dying parents, a dying business, raising teenagers, and perimenopause. I was suddenly looking into a completely different mirror, fogged up with grief. And grief, as we know, can elicit some primal instincts. Much like the laboring woman desiring ice chips to cool her down and wet her mouth, I too was seeking some sort of comforting distraction. I like to say if my 20s and 30s were my second stage of labor, my 40s were transition. The stage where the cervix fully dilates and contractions are very strong. I call it my painful era. Thank you, Taylor Swift. It is common for midwives to offer a mirror to a laboring woman so that she can visually connect her sensations and pain to her power and purpose. And not always, but many times this is denied, understandably, as that power can be really scary. And I quote, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure." It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Thank you, Marianne Williamson. I was indeed frightened by this foggy mirror of my 40s. Frightened by all these foreign feelings. There was less light, and things were unclear. I believed that my fear had nowhere to go, and that neither did I. And for this extrovert, feeling alone was what you might call outside of my comfort zone. During labor, the body experiences the fight or flight response. Blood pressure and heart rate go up so you can be ready for anything. But what's unique about labor is you can't fight it and you can't flight it. You have to be with it and you have to do it. And only then can you reap the fruits, as they say. But still, I tried what any good laboring woman, or in my case, a good griever, tries to do. I fighted and flighted. I denied and ran away from that dreaded mirror. What I didn't realize, however, is that I was running straight toward a much more powerful one. One that reflects our brightest light right back at us. It was January 1st, 2021, and that mirror was the Atlantic Ocean. The outside temp that day was 30, and the water temp was 40. And if you're unfamiliar, that is cold. My girlfriend and I decided to go jump in the ocean. Thank you, Correlate. Because number one, people do that on New Year's Day. And number two, in January of 2021, what else was there to do? So our cheerleading husbands drove us to the beach, and in we ran and out we screamed with pain and fear and joy. I didn't know why, but I knew the next day I had to do that again. That was no ordinary polar plunge. So I did it every day that January. And at the end of the month, I stopped and thought, well, that was cool. Maybe that was just a January thing. But after 4 dipless days, the depression crept back in. I was miserable, and my husband and I looked at each other like, maybe I should get back in the water. So I did, and I never looked back. What I thought was an escape was actually utter presence. The cold was the only thing equally as intense as my grief, in such a way that it felt balancing, like it was canceling it out, if not understanding it. I walked out feeling good every time. There is something about going into the ocean that feels like crawling back into the womb. A darkness that feels safe, not scary. And the ancient ancestral connection I feel when that degree of cold envelops me still proves today to be as comforting as it is mysterious. The cold water revealed more to me than I ever imagined, and it still does every damn day. It was there, in the 40-degree ocean, where I learned the difference between the mirror I had been looking in and the cold water one. Both exquisite reflectors, but with 2 completely opposing messages. Where a mirror judges, the cold water teaches. Where a mirror reflects us in reverse, the cold water reflects our truth. Where a mirror picks us apart, the cold water picks our rhythm. Where a mirror reflects the physical, the cold water reflects the primal. Where a mirror can make you cry, the cold water can make you laugh. Where in a mirror we are alone, in the cold ocean, you are with everyone you bring with you and everyone that came before you. It reflects our light, our scary, scary light, even on the cloudiest day. And when we do it with breath, intention, safety, presence, in community, leaving our egos at the shore, and when you feel its buoyancy, there is no more powerfully healing milieu than the cold salt water. The fog was clearing, and my purpose was further revealed, and from that came an obvious mission. Saltwater Mountain Company was here to empower women, support mental health, and build community. Beautiful things happened that winter. I personally came to understand dipping through how it made me feel, the magic part. And now I was ready to understand the research, the science part. For example, understanding that the increase in my adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine levels were contributing to my improved mood by up to 250%. Understanding that my consistent vagus nerve stimulation was regulating my nervous system, which for me looked like calmer reactions to the stressors of life. Understanding that by activating my shiver response, my brown fat cells could be more efficient, proving promise for metabolic and cardiovascular disease prevention. Understanding words like hormesis, exposing my cells to small amounts of stress in order to build resilience, proving promise for my immune system. Understanding how to breathe through the tough mental walls. Ask any dipper, and there are several in this room. There are many when you walk into that water. Ask any person, there are many in life. I became more cold adapted. So much more tolerant, in fact, that I no longer dreaded winter, and I never thought that would happen. I learned that it's not just about continuing to increase your time in the water. After all, we're not here for the hypothermia. I learned that cold showers can be beneficial too, but that they're harder for me. I learned that when we have a front row seat to our stress response, we can use that awareness to better handle the stressors of life and death that come our way. I learned that I can't wait to learn more. Yes, beautiful things happened that year. Community dips were born at York Harbor Beach and open to all. Women and men of all ages joined. Women were showing up vulnerable, raw, nearly naked. They showed up alone and left with a friend. The women empowerment was palpable. The mental health was undeniable, and the community had a heartbeat of its own. Here are some things that were being said, and I quote, "I feel like a badass every time I walk out of that water." "My knee pain is gone for the first time ever." "My blood pressure is lower and my hot flashes have vanished." "Dipping saved me." Dipping was a way to have connection and not feel so alone and isolated. "I have made more friends dipping than I had in 3 years living in York." Until this point, my chosen coping mechanisms were those in easy reach, food and alcohol, and I needed a wake-up. And there are more. Quote, I love that you have enabled me to see a happy, healthy body striding into the sea at sunrise, instead of looking at lumps, bumps, and swaying cellulite. Dipping is a rebirth for me, a fresh start, and a new chance to begin every time. And the most frequently heard testimonial, dipping has changed my life. I cannot disagree. Women who previously hated the cold, or who were admittedly hesitant to wear a bathing suit in public, were not only returning every week, but wearing bikinis, or better yet, whatever they wanted. Friendships were being formed. Something was working. And it looked a little bit like this. say I birthed Saltwater Mountain Company, but it's more accurate to say it birthed me. Here at 50, I am a newborn in the second half of my life, standing in front of a new mirror. So far, I really like the view. If you thought water was a good reflector, I recommend standing on stage and sharing your story. Nothing reflects our light back at us quite like community. Thank you, Jen. So together, as we recall our cultural backdrop, and as we look at women rising today on the basketball court, on the stage, in the Olympics, and in politics, it is my hope that all of us can harness that power and let it serve as our permission and our responsibility to keep going. Because whether or not dipping down is your thing, I can assure you that rising up is. Thank you.